Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited that you're here, and today in this video I'm actually going to be doing a garden tour. So I'm actually filming this after I did the garden tour itself. As you can tell, it's a lot more sunny now. It was a little bit drizzly and cloudy during the video, but overall I think the lighting was pretty good. You know, I'm kind of new at this, so you know, just having to learn as I go. But I am located in the upstate of South Carolina, zone 7. So it's actually already getting pretty warm here, which makes for a pretty good growing season for us, and a very long growing season. So we have been working on this since about October. Really hit it hard in January, where we built our greenhouse, and then a lot of the other infrastructure you're going to see. None of this was here, none of these garden beds, the greenhouse. We literally started from scratch. So a lot of this year has just been about learning, building infrastructure, and it's really just trial and error. So one of the things that I like to say is don't be afraid to fail, because when you fail, you're learning, and that's really what, you know, I'm all about. So I hope that you enjoy the video. Please subscribe to my channel. That supports me, and it will allow me to continue to make content. And please like this video, and feel free to leave comments down below. Again, I'm kind of new at this, so you know, if there are certain things you would like to see, I would love to get some feedback on that. So without further ado, please enjoy our garden. Okay, so the first part of our garden here is going to be along this privacy fence that we put in last year. This was kind of the beginning of our structures that we started about last summer. And so with our land here, it's very terraced or very sloped. So we pretty much have had to figure out ways that we can maximize our property, since we are on about 0.67 acres. So one of the last things that we put in was these beds right here, which we primarily wanted to use these for tomatoes and be able to use these cattle panels so that our indeterminate tomatoes can grow on those. So you're going to be able to see those kind of behind here, and a few of those are doing, you know, a little bit better than others. It's kind of been a slow process. And so those will grow up the trellis. And then in this bed, we're trying to maximize as much space as we can. We did put a sunflower here on this end, as well as a sunflower on this end. And these two beds mirror each other pretty much exactly. Then we have some rosemary that we put in. So we're trying to put our herbs in and mix those in as well. So we have our rosemary here, and then we have some mammoth dill that's really starting to take off. And then here we have some marigolds. So one thing that I've been trying to do is grow, different types of flowers and things along with my vegetables. And so did a lot of research, and marigolds actually are great companion plants, specifically with tomatoes, but other plants too. They actually help deter certain pests. So we're trying to do things pretty natural here, without any chemicals and things like that. So anything that we can do to help our garden thrive, you know, that's what we're trying to do. We have seen a little bit of damage on some of our sunflowers, which we'll see in a minute, but overall this bed is doing pretty good. So we have our tomatoes, we have the sunflowers, and then we have our marigolds and our dill, and then we also put in a lavender in each of these beds too. Here I have a couple of flowers that I grew. So I have some nasturtiums here, some more marigolds, so just kind of a mix, and again just trying to add some flowers and stuff in with the vegetables. And so again, here is our other bed. It looks pretty much exactly like that bed that we just looked at. So one other thing that I wanted to mention is, as you can see, like this rosemary plant, this is a plant that we actually bought from a store. But a lot of the plants that we are growing are things that I started from seeds, which I'm super proud of. This is our first year really doing this, and having a greenhouse and growing plants. And so most of what you will see, we actually did start from seeds, like this sunflower, and it's doing super good. But we did want to try to jumpstart a few things just that maybe take a little bit longer. Also just to try to see, you know, the different successes. So like the rosemary, we bought that from the store. This tomato plant and one other we did buy from a store, but these tomatoes here are ones that I grew myself. The marigolds are things that I did start from seed too. Okay, so over here, we ended up putting in 4 beds, and I wanted this area to be a little bit more aesthetic, and you know, obviously I wanted it to be functional, but I did want it to be, you know, pretty as well. And so we have 4 beds here, and we're growing a lot of different things in here, some of which we haven't completely filled up yet, because we are still starting some things like beans and cucumbers and squash. Those things are actually still in the greenhouse, and you'll see those a little bit later. So we have some things in these beds and some things are still empty, so it's still a work in progress. But we do have a couple of things. So like here's a butternut squash plant. We actually did buy this from the store, and we put it here just so that it can kind of trail out along this area and not take over, you know, a lot of the space that we have. We will probably do the same with a few other things like watermelons and those types of plants that are gonna kind of spread out and can kind of take over some space. I do have 2 of these boxes here. I have one over here and one on the other side. And this was something I had started last year with some herbs. Some of them did overwinter and some did not. So this one actually did overwinter here. And so I'm hoping to be able to really establish some herbs this year that will overwinter. In this area, I did plant some carrots. Maybe carrots aren't hard for some people to grow, but that is one of the things that I did have some difficulty with. There are some carrot plants in here that are, you know, established, but I had started with 3 rows of carrots and 3 different varieties, and you can kind of see my markers there. I do have a few things coming up, and then there's some weeds in here that I need to take care of. So I'm hoping that maybe I'll get something out of this, but carrots is something I'm probably going to have to really work on next year. And then we do have a few other things in here. We have some broccoli, which is going to be here. And we have some romaine, which is here. And then we have a few other things here that we've planted. I'm trying to remember. I think these are purple cabbage, maybe. They're a little bit smaller than some of the ones I have in another space of the garden. And then down here we have some more, mostly this row is spinach. This looks like either another probably cabbage, green cabbage plant here. I do have some more sunflowers that I put in. I wanted those to be here along these arches just to provide support if they needed it. And so we planted about 4 here and then 4 here. You can see a little bit of that damage I was talking about here, so not really sure what may be causing that. So overall though, they're still doing pretty good, so I'm not super worried about that. Okay, so as we are walking into this space, we do have 2 archways that we put in. These are going to be super nice when it comes to planting our beans. So we have a couple of pole beans that we're growing, and then a few other climbing varieties of other things that we plan to utilize these trellises for, and hopefully it will completely cover it, and you know, it'll be a nice like shady walkway. As you notice, like a lot of this is, you know, kind of muddy. We do plan to come in and we're still trying to decide if we want to do gravel or if we want to actually get some concrete and you know, do more like this pathway here. We started this a few years ago before we ever started homesteading, and so we do plan to extend this pathway out here at least to the entrance, and then kind of decide what we want to do for the walkway. So they're a little bit muddy, but that's okay. So we did repurpose some of these hanging baskets that we had here. I believe those were from IKEA from a few years ago. And so we are trying to hang some flowers and stuff in there. So we have some nasturtiums hanging in these. Nasturtiums are really good for hanging baskets because they will actually you know, droop down, and they can be really full and really pretty. So we're really excited about those. This is another one of those herb containers that I was mentioning. And so I don't plan to keep these in here, but I had started these earlier in the year when it was cold, and so I had this in the greenhouse. So we have some parsley, cilantro, and some basil here. I have a few other herbs that I've started in the greenhouse and that are also scattered throughout the garden. This bed is pretty much empty. There's nothing in this other than the sunflowers, and then I have some other flowers down here. And so this one we're primarily thinking we're going to use for our probably cucumbers and some squash and things like that. We're still kind of planning out what's going to go where. Again, this is our first year doing this, and so it's, you know, we're just learning as we go. So not 100% sure where everything is going to go and whether it's going to be successful where we put it, but we're just trying to maximize as much space as we can because we don't have, you know, a lot of growing area. So as we walk through, we do have some Spanish lavender here, and so I did actually purchase those from the store, and because I wanted something a little bit established, especially because of our bees, and wanted them to have something ready to go early in the spring. Over here we have some white, I think it's called dianthus, and so again, this was a flower that we purchased just so that it was already established, just to add a little bit of, you know, beauty to the garden, especially since it's all kind of, you know, muddy and raw looking at the moment. So as we walk through, we have planted a few things in here. We did transplant a couple things. You know, this area we're still considering potentially just taking this stuff out. Some of this is kind of a mix of spinach and I believe some other broccoli and stuff that's just not really taken off as well as in some of the other spaces. So we might just go ahead and take this out, and this whole bed would pretty much be open except for the flowers that we put in. So over here I do have some zinnias that I planted from seed. And over here I have a few more. And one thing I do want to note is that I have gotten some seeds from several different places. Actually, when I started thinking about planting this year, I started by going to the Dollar General at the end of last season. And I was able to purchase a ton of seeds for a very, very cheap price. And that is something I would recommend if you're wanting to get started. A lot of my flowers, those seeds came from there, in addition to a lot of the vegetables. Now, I did end up purchasing some other seeds from MIgardener and Baker Creek, just because I wanted to make sure that, you know, I wasn't solely relying on the Dollar General seeds and not knowing, you know, if they were going to be successful or not. So I'll link those places below if you want to check those out and, you know, start looking at some seeds from there. Over here, we do have our Greenstalk. This is a really cool vertical planter that I absolutely love. Hopefully, I'll be able to purchase a few more in the future. And in here we have our strawberries. So again, we're just really getting established. So we bought quite a bit of strawberries this year, enough to fill up about half of this planter. And we don't really have much growing down here. And so our goal is that these strawberries will actually trail into the other baskets, and we will continue to grow our strawberry harvest, or we can just separate our plants out, and you know, in the future this whole thing will be full. The great thing about strawberries in our area is that they are perennials, and so once you get your strawberries established, they will come back year after year. And so we put our strawberries in here primarily to keep rabbits out. We do have a lot of rabbits in our area, and so we wanted to make sure that we were able to protect them. So as you can see, we do have a few baby strawberries coming in here. All of the flowers will turn into strawberries, so that's super cool. You can see another one kind of starting there. So that is our strawberries in our Greenstalk. The great thing about the Greenstalk is you fill it up from the top and it flows throughout the whole thing. And so it makes watering super easy. This is a great option for people who are in a very small space, whether you're in an apartment or, you know, you're on a very small piece of land. You can grow anything in these. They have 2 different sizes. And so depending on what you're wanting to grow, you could get a different size. So I'll have a link below for the Greenstalk as well if that's something you're interested in. All right, in this bed over here, we actually just planted a lot of this out yesterday. And so in here we have a few different things. Over here is actually a tomato plant that we did purchase from the store. Again, I did buy 2 tomato plants that I did not grow from seed. And this one over here is a determinate tomato. And it's important to know when you're growing tomatoes, there are 2 types, determinate and indeterminate. Determinate means that the height of the plant is determined. The plant will grow to a certain height and then it will stop. Versus indeterminate, which is what all of these are here, these do not have a determined height and they will grow and grow and grow basically until the end of the season and the first frost. And so we put our determinate tomato here because it's not going to necessarily need a trellis or anything to support it, versus here they will. And so what we will do is we'll actually come back in and we will put a cattle panel in, much like the other garden beds that we've already looked at, so that as these begin to grow and get taller, they will have support. Otherwise, they will kind of trail off. Another thing that I will be doing as these grow is doing a lot of pruning. And so I will share more videos about that as they begin to grow. Tomatoes can be a little bit finicky when it comes to humidity, especially in our area here in South Carolina. So you want to make sure that they have good airflow. Another thing is you want to make sure that the leaves are not touching the ground. One thing that we haven't done here yet, because we need to actually mulch up some more mulch, is putting down something so that the soil doesn't splash back onto the leaves. Tomatoes are very finicky when it comes to that too. In here, in this row and this row, we have a variety of different peppers. We have some jalapenos, we have some bell peppers, I believe maybe we have some habaneros. Honestly, I can't remember. Again, I planted a bunch of different varieties just because I wanted to make sure that I did get a successful harvest. One of the things that I really love canning, and I'm hoping to can a lot of this year, is salsa. And so for salsa, obviously you need tomatoes, you need peppers, and you need jalapenos, and so hopefully I'll have a good harvest and can up a bunch of salsa. So that's kind of what we have going on in this bed, primarily tomatoes and peppers. Okay, over here we have our beehive, which we're super excited about. We put this in about March, I guess. You can see there's not a lot of activity today, primarily because it's a little bit drizzly and cloudy, so they're not as active as they are when it's nice and hot and sunny outside. So not too much going on. There's a few coming in and out and taking off. Right beside this, we do have a blackberry bush that my husband actually transplanted out of the woods. And so hopefully we'll get some blackberries off of that. And so super excited about the beehive. Hopefully we'll be able to get some honey out of it this year. The first year, you're really not supposed to take much honey from it, just so that they can really establish. But we will see. Maybe we can at least get one frame, just to say, hey, we got to try it. But we'll see what happens. Okay, so up here we have the 4 original beds that we put in. This was a lot of work to be able to put these in. This whole area is very, very rocky, and so it took a little bit of work to be able to flatten these out, and then be able to put these in. As you can tell, they are on a gradual slope, but they have worked out really well. As you can see, we have a lot of stuff growing in here. So in this first one, we have some celery here. So it's doing okay. Again, started that from seed. here I have some more marigolds. A few of these are starting to get a little bit of some purple leaves going on. And then right beside that, we have some more indeterminate tomatoes. These I planted several weeks ago. The ones that we saw in the other beds, those I actually just planted out not long ago. So these were the first ones to come out. Again, kind of a slow start, but you know, not adding any kind of Miracle Grow or anything like that. These are all completely organic. We have added a little bit of some organic fertilizer, but you know, as it warms up and stays consistently warm, these will really start to take off. Over here we have, I believe these are a couple different cabbage varieties. We have some purple cabbage here and some green cabbage here. Again, those are really kind of starting to take off and do, you know, fairly well. This is really just kind of an experiment. I did try to start some different onions from seeds versus sets, and so you can kind of see these are the onions that started from seeds, and these are the onions we bought sets for. And so there's different kind of life cycles with onions, and so I don't know a whole lot about that outside of the seeds seem to take you know, a little bit longer, and then the sets, which you buy in bulb form, or you can buy them where they're already shooting, you know, their green stalks out. These will grow a lot quicker, and so our onions are definitely taking off and doing very well here. And then here we have some different peas. We have some sugar and peas, and then we also have these over here. These are sugar snap peas. So a couple different varieties. Can kind of tell, you know, some of them are doing a little bit better than others. These were one of the first things that we planted out because these are a cool weather crop. However, they are really starting to take off in the last few weeks. So maybe planted them a little early. They may have gotten knocked back because of the cold. So just again, another learning curve. I did start these all from seeds. And so, yeah, we'll see. All of these flowers will produce fruit. So we can actually see, I'm kind of looking at these a little bit from a distance. We can see a few here. So those are starting to form up. This one right here is actually doing really well. And so all of these flowers will produce peas. All right, on this side, I have beets, a couple different varieties of beets in here. These are really starting to take off as well. Again, started these from seed. Super excited. I love pickled beets. It's one of my favorite things. I have been buying some beets from Azure, and I canned those. But I really want to be able to grow my own. And so beets are a little bit finicky. We did have to do some amending to our soil because our leaves were purple. And so after doing some research, we did find that we needed to amend the soil, and now all of our leaves are green, so that's good. Again, a lot of this is just trial and error, doing research, trying to find what works, and you know, just being willing to take risk. I think that's kind of the motto for me, is you don't know until you try. And so, you know, all this is really experimental for us, not really knowing what we're doing, just trying to take a leap of faith and, you know, see what happens. So over here, we have some other cabbage. It's not really heading up yet. You can kind of start seeing in the centers it's starting to kind of round up a little bit. So hopefully, you know, we'll start to get those heads establishing. And then I do have some nasturtiums I planted here and over here on this side. Nasturtiums are great companion plants as well, so that's one of the reasons I planted some of those up here. And then we do have a second trellis of peas. And so again, we'll just see how the peas do, how much we get from them. You know, maybe need to do a little bit more research on how to get more of a harvest from them, or, you know, maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll get more than I think as it warms up. So, all right, over here, this has been our leafy green bed. So we have been eating out of this bed actually for a while now. So we have a couple different varieties. I think this is like a butter lettuce. We have a couple different varieties of spinach here. And let's see, little gem lettuce is what these are here. That's probably one of my favorites. I mean, we have a couple more down here. And then we do have a bunch of collards, which we're hoping to harvest those and can those. So hopefully you'll see a video about that coming out soon. And these are getting to a good size. You don't want them to get too big. The bigger the leaves get, the more tough and bitter they are. And so we're probably going to go ahead and try to harvest some of these so that we can eat them. But we've been eating on some of this. You can kind of tell where we had, you know, we've cut off this one, and we cut these off all the way to the ground, and they're coming back already. So, you know, this is one of those things that if you're really wanting to start with gardening, growing lettuce is a great place to start. It is a cooler weather crop, so as it gets hot, you know, in which it will here in South Carolina, it's going to get warm pretty quick. You know, this is something that you could try to plant this fall if you want to kind of get your feet wet. And these, again, all of this started from seed. So, you know, I'm very happy about that. Again, this was our first harvest. And so, you know, the feeling of growing something from seed, all organic, you know, is a pretty cool feeling. So I have gotten a couple of questions about this fence. It's not finished. This has been a labor of love. This is actually all crepe myrtle cuttings. So we have a crepe myrtle on our property, but where my husband works, they have, I think, 4 of them. And so this was actually my husband's idea to put in this privacy fence because this borders our property and our neighbor's property. And ideally in the future, we can actually grow something on this fence. And so the crepe myrtles needed to be cut back. And so we have been cutting those. All of the mulch that we've been mulching is actually from these crepe myrtles, the pieces that we couldn't use in the fence. But we're going to just keep adding to it and eventually have a full fence in, and it's all for free. You know, we haven't had to pay anything for any of this. And crepe myrtles can be pretty prolific, and you have to cut them back. And so a great way to put in a fence for nothing if you can, you know, get your hands on that. And again, our mulch has all come pretty much from this too. So we've not had to buy any mulch, which that's super exciting as well. So that is the fence. It's called a wattle fence, if I didn't say that already. So if you want to research that, that's what that is. Okay, over here we have our potatoes. Now, again, this is kind of an experiment. We did plant some potatoes at my father-in-law's house, and we did about 2 rows there. He owns a good bit of property, and it's more pasture land. And we were a little bit worried because it was pretty wet there and weren't really sure if we were going to get any potatoes. So I did buy some potato, well, not potato bags, but grow bags. You can kind of see it inside of here. And we actually had these planters from when we built our porch a few years ago, and we weren't really using them. So we decided to put the bags in the boxes, and we put some potatoes in there and weren't really sure what was going to happen. Again, all an experiment. And as you can see, each of these has a ton of potato plants growing out of it. So we will see at the end of you know, the potato harvest season if we actually get anything out of this. But, you know, seeing the green is a pretty good sign. So pretty hopeful we'll get some potatoes here. The potatoes at my father-in-law's house actually are coming up. We went over there the other day and did some work to try to control the weeds and put in a fence to hopefully keep critters out from there. So who knows, we might actually have a pretty decent potato harvest, but we will see. So here I actually have garlic. This was actually the first thing that I planted on our homesteading journey. And so I wasn't really sure how it would do, but from what I had researched, it seemed a pretty easy process. to be able to, there's Penny, to be able to put the cloves of garlic in the ground and put some mulch over it, and here we are. So it has survived even the big freeze that we had back, I think it was in December. And so yeah, not sure, may not get anything out of this. I mean, they seem to be growing, and so we will find out later when it's time to harvest these, if I can keep her out of it. That's been our biggest challenge, is keeping her out of some of these things, but overall doing pretty good, so we will see. So in the greenhouse, we really don't have too much left, mostly our summer stuff, and so a few of these are actually empty blocks that I didn't do anything with, but in here we have some gourds. Those aren't coming up yet. We have some other things, watermelon, cantaloupe, butternut squash, and those aren't coming up. It looks like these zucchini though are coming up, and a few of these crookneck squash. The cucumbers are starting to come up, so super excited about that. I also have some lemon basil here. This is in my small soil blocker, so I will actually pot all of this this week, so that it has room. But I kind of do it this way first, just to see what germinates and what doesn't, and that way I'm not taking up a ton of space. Again, trying to save space, and I can plant more in a tray this size with the small one and see what germinates, and then up pot from there. That's been kind of my method, and so it seems to work for me. I do have a couple of other flowers I need to put out here. And then over here, super excited about these. This is mostly our beans. So I have some Blue Lake pole beans here, Kentucky Wonder pole beans here. So those will need to be trellised. These are bush beans, so Antigua here. These are black turtle beans. The Jacob's cattle beans are not coming up yet, it doesn't look like. Here are some kidney beans and some Clemson okra. So super excited about that. This is actually something that is local, so that's exciting. I do have a couple more pepper plants here that we may put out. I'm kind of giving them a little bit more time to really get established before I move those out. And then I do have a whole nother tray of flowers here that we need to get out. All right, so the last thing on the garden tour is this area here. This is an area that we decided we would use as kind of like a orchard for berries and things like that. I do have a power pole that kind of grows, or not grows, but is here in the middle of this. And we do have a pecan tree here. We've never really gotten anything out of this thing. The squirrels tend to get it all, so you know, we'll see. But overall, these are doing very well. I'm very happy with these. These are elderberry bushes here. I got 3 different varieties, and I think I got these from Stark Brothers. And these have grown significantly since we planted them. So super excited about this. They are doing very well here. We actually can find elderberry here in South Carolina wild, and so we are going to try to do some foraging this year and see if we can find some. But yeah, these are doing very good. Super excited about that. So hopefully in the future we will have elderberry, and yeah, we'll see. I also got these blueberries from Stark Brothers. These were very small. They are growing, just they're going to take a whole lot longer than those others. But yeah, I got a couple different blueberries here. You know, not much going on with these. These will take a while to really establish. But these over here, actually got these from Tractor Supply. And we have 3 of them, and they already have blueberries on them. So as you can see, super excited about that. So hopefully in the future these will get a lot bigger, and we will have our own blueberries. We do have a lot of different orchards and stuff in our area, so we are pretty blessed about that. Pretty much any fruit you want to get, there are different orchards and stuff. So I do a lot of blueberry picking, generally in about end of June, early July. Strawberries, we actually just did a harvest of those locally as well. And we do have apples and peaches available locally too. So that's super exciting, and being able to support other places, but it is nice to be able to grow your own. So that's what we're trying to do here. Hey, Pin Pin. Hey, Pin Pin. Can you be a good girl and sit? Can you be a good girl and sit? Sit. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl.